Brothers and sisters, I want to make a confession. I did not think that I would see the day in Canada when we would have to protest in the streets of Toronto and other cities that our elections have been stolen.
Jerry Agar in for Ezra. He'll be back tomorrow. Wow! Has Canadian democracy been stolen? Should I get out of the studio while you get out of your living room to protest together in the streets? Or is it just a bit too soon to be going for the pitchforks? Journal to Quebec journalist Eric Duhaime joins me now. Eric, welcome.
Hi.
Do we need to get out in the streets? Our democracy has been stolen, Eric.
It's just over-the-top statements like that that makes it even less credible. I mean, why did it take them, that's the first question, is why did it take them close to a year to figure out that they were stolen a year ago? How come on May 2nd of last year, nobody figured it out? None of the candidates who lost supposedly because there was a massive fraud in their constituencies realized that their own voters couldn't vote. How come it took them a year? I mean, this is the first basic question that none of the opposition that is, you know, spreading that campaign, that smear campaign right now could answer. Like, I don't understand why. I personally ran in a former life as a candidate, and there was 3 of my supporters who couldn't vote, and I knew exactly where, when, and why, and I went to Elections Quebec and complained and tabled complaints and did everything, and I can tell you, on the night of the election, if I had lost by 2 votes, I would have challenged the election on the spot. How come the Liberals and the NDP are so disconnected from their grassroots supporters that they didn't know that those people were deprived to vote, and it took them close to a year? That's the first question they need to answer. The second question here is, how come if there was 30,000 who were complaining via some American websites lately to Elections Canada, where are those 30,000 people? How come in Montreal yesterday there was like 24 of supporters, and in Toronto there might have been 200-300, I don't know, according to CBC it's 500, so split it by 2 or by 3 for a reality check. And so how come...
Well, 12 in Ottawa, so they were really gung-ho there.
12 in Ottawa, so that was great. So where were the 30,000 others? That's my first question, my second question, because I'm wondering if there was such a massive fraud, how come nobody is outside and is outraged right now? So, I mean, we have to be realistic into this. This is clearly a partisan-led campaign. Obviously, yesterday we saw it all over. All the spokespersons were linked to the left in this country from one way or the other. Even the American websites are linked to the left and the NDP traditionally. So, I mean, this is clearly a partisan thing. Today in the House of Commons, they keep going about that. You know, it's part of a strategy of every day trying to spread the news and have something new to talk about so they could make headlines with journalists who are brown-nosers to those cause. So this is exactly what we see right now going on in Canada. But fortunately, I don't think Canadian voters are buying that spin. I think people see clearly that the election was done honestly. And if there's been fraud, well, bring those people in front of a court, and you know, whatever they did, they have to pay for what they did if they did something illegal. But in the meantime, stop the political partisan rhetoric. I think we're all sick and tired of it right now.
Yeah, I think this whole thing is long on heat and rhetoric and not so long on evidence, and I agree with you. I think everybody, up to the Prime Minister, agrees. Somebody did something like this, they belong in jail, and if that is proven, then so be it. But the protest really isn't about that. It's just about a lot of heat and a lot of generalized complaints. Let's talk about the man we saw just a moment ago who was railing about how we have to get out in the streets, our democracy is stolen. This is a guy, Zafar Bangash, who has said, under Obama, there's a greater chance the U.S. would launch wars in Africa. A black man in the White House would be better able to pacify African-American sentiment than a white man, and he has called Canada a fully paid-up member of the Anglo-Saxon mafia responsible for most of the recorded genocides in the world.
Yeah, and you can keep going on, because there's even more outrageous statement from that guy. You can talk about the fact that now he's disappointed of Obama, and he calls him an Oreo, saying he's black from the outside but white inside. He's also saying that the Iranian Revolution is the only success protests that happened in the Middle East over the last few decades. So, I mean, this guy has clearly a very, very radical Islamist/socialist agenda, and it's unfortunate, but these are the people leading right now the pack on the other side and complaining and challenging everything, and we clearly see that those people are not in favor of democracy, you know, because supposedly he was talking in favor of democracy. If he's so concerned about democracy, how come he's supporting the worst terrorist, anti-democratic regime in the world? And how come he's attacking those who are the most democratic according to any kind of standard? I mean, this is very suspicious. I mean, this guy clearly has a political agenda that is way ahead. I think this guy is probably much more a leftist or Islamist sympathizer than he is a Democrat, unfortunately.
Well, what I'm afraid of, Eric, is that with the misunderstanding a lot of the public has, and it's not their fault, the media is feeding that these 31,000 contacts to Elections Canada are actually 31,000 people who have said I was directed away from my polling station, and that's not true. But if you have that, and then you have these angry protests on the street, then what could possibly happen, and maybe this is the agenda, Eric, is that eventually when Elections Canada said there's really nothing here, they'll think it's a cover-up.
Of course, they'll say it's a cover-up, but what about the 31,000? What did they do again? Oh yeah, they forwarded a message from an American website to Elections Canada. Like, that's what happened. So those are not people who decide, it's not grandmother and grandfather, you know, writing a letter on their table and sending it with the stamp to Elections Canada. It's people, it's leftists, it's activists on the internet who pressed forward on a prepared message by an American website and their link and their antenna here in Canada. This is what happened. So be cautious, because it's not real 31,000 real people, and as you saw in the streets, they're far away from 31,000 right now. And Elections Canada obviously is going to do its job. If there is something wrong, somebody will pay for that. And if there's nothing wrong, Elections Canada will tell us. There's already an investigation by Elections Canada. So I don't even understand why are they still outraged. They should let the process work and see if there is something behind it or not before doing protests and keep going and asking for more and more inquiries. Currently, they're trying to undermine Elections Canada, and that for me is very undemocratic also. So they have to be very, very cautious, because it could be a very slippery slope and it could backfire big time against the NDP and the opposition if they keep going this way.
Yeah, well, and as we saw from these quotes from Zafar Bangash, he's hardly mainstream Canadian.
No.
Eric, thank you so much.
Always a pleasure. Thank you very much.